Good morning. Welcome into Boston. Has entered the chat. What's up? What's happening? It's Wednesday, June 25th, live inside the Salem 5 studios. George Balekji here, Lucy Burdge here, locking in with y'all for the next hour. We got everything on the latest on the Boston Celtics and how this retool of an offseason and this redo of their budget continues. Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis no longer with the C's. Could there be more on the way? We'll break that down coming up, along with Jay King of The Athletic joining us to say, hey, this is what Brad Stevens is doing. This is what I can see could happen, and talk a little NBA draft as well. As always, we'll get into what's trending and talk some Hockey Hall of Fame as well. Lucy, what a 48 hours, not even it's been. Jrue Holiday to Portland, Anthony Simons in return, a couple draft picks. Kristaps Porzingis now in Atlanta, George Niang in return, a draft pick there too. Brad Stevens continues to navigate this offseason, got the Celtics under that second apron, which was a really daunting task, saved them almost $200 million in tax penalties, and he's not even done yet.
Yeah, exactly, George. A good morning. Not only are the Celtics a completely different team than they were when they won the championship, basically a year ago to the day almost, they are a different team than they were 48 hours ago. So much has happened in the past 48 hours. Of course, we'll get to all of it, but the Brad Stevens is cooking. Brad Stevens is awake. Brad Stevens is caffeinated because he is making moves like you read about.
Yeah, I don't think he's even sleeping at this point.
Right.
When these deals
Does he ever sleep? Is he human?
It's almost midnight with the Jrue trade. This one was around dinner time last night as we see the news come down. So the full trade details: the Hawks receive Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick, so he's going to join Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, and them down in Atlanta. The Celtics get George Niang and a second-round pick in return. The Nets, the third team involved in all this, they get Terrence Mann, good player, and the Hawks' first-round pick. But the Celtics, again, shedding $62 million pretty much in salary and payroll this upcoming season, and save almost $200 million because of the tax penalties, the repeater tax, all of this, all those dollar signs, a whole lot of money. They were about to pay $515 million to put a team on the floor this upcoming season. That number is down to just $280 million, and that's part of the plan as well. And it's more than the new ownership. I see that coming out a lot, and that talk was what you get with new owners. No, this is now the new modern-day NBA. You don't want to pay that repeater tax. You don't want to pay those penalties. The Supermaxes is something now they have to navigate. The Oklahoma City Thunder put forth the model: draft, develop, extend with a guy like SGA and build around him. But it's no longer big threes. It's no longer super maxes all over and just paying what you want with guys. It is now you have to be smart, because eventually this hard cap stuff, what is as hard of a cap as you see in the NBA, is very real. And the Boston Celtics, they could have still won an NBA championship with the core they have. That's showing how legit it is that Brad Stevens is willing to pivot and adapt and move on into this new era of building a team in the NBA.
Absolutely. It definitely feels like Brad Stevens has something up his sleeve, that he has possibly more moves to make. I'm in the camp of he's not done. He's still going to make more moves. And there were major financial reasons for him to make this move. It definitely seems like this is less about new ownership and more that Brad Stevens is being a financial wizard. And he's thinking about the future of this team, especially waiting for Jason Tatum to return. So there's a lot to like about the future of the Celtics, and Brad Stevens is adding to that and emphasizing that. And I think he has a lot more to do, and that he will do going forward.
Yeah, let's get to the tweets. We saw Kristaps Porzingis post on Twitter this morning a special message to the city that he resonated with a lot. Boston will always be a special place in my heart. Huge thank you to the organization, coaches, staff, my teammates, and the fans. Class organization. Forever grateful. This is a guy that, it's not just he came to Boston, the city loved him, and he won a ring, but this was a guy that was drafted by the New York Knicks and just a kid out of his home country in Europe, and learning not just how to be an NBA player, but also just how to be an adult and be his own person in the biggest of spotlights in New York. And that city wanted him to thrive, but it never worked out. Then he goes to Dallas, and it doesn't work with him and Luka. He goes to Washington, which is basically like the gulag for anyone that wants to be in the NBA. You don't want to go there. Comes to Boston, sees what an actual franchise is run like, what an actual fan base does to support their team, and he won a championship. The relief, the excitement, just the overall genuineness I would see from a Kristaps Porzingis when interviewing him at a press conference or watching him talk in his numerous interviews. You could tell how much he enjoyed being in Boston. And yes, he won a ring. Yes, he got paid. All that came with it. But for someone that loves the game of basketball, battles through injuries all the time to play for his national team, to play for his NBA teams, this must have reinvigorated him and his joy for the game being in Boston. And honestly, I'm happy that he had to be off the books for the Celtics. It had to go. I'm happy to see him go to a team like Atlanta that has a good core and should be challenging for a postseason run.
Yeah, they're building around Trae Young, so that's good for them, for him to land in a spot like that. I think the fans completely embraced him, and he is a guy that you could easily embrace as a fan base who loves to embrace players and loves when players really interact with the fans and love being here. And I think the optics of the blood on his forehead will be a lasting image for Celtics fans and his time here. I mean, just his tweet, a class organization. He's a class guy. I mean, that is a classy statement from him, and just succinct, to the point. Just, I enjoyed my time here. Thank you for this. And he's, a legend in his own right in that sense, too. But, of course, it's tough to see, as people tweeted, brutal moves. To see a guy like that go, it has to happen financially because this is a business, after all. Sports is a business at the end of the day, and trades happen. But this did happen, and he is landing in a spot that's good for him. But I think Brad Stevens knows what he's doing, so it's good for Porzingis.
Yeah, and you're right. We see that on Twitter. Some people going, this is brutal. The second apron, all of that. Jrue Holiday was about to be 35, and his offense and defense both regressed. Kristaps Porzingis ran his course in a way where it was always a part of he was never healthy. Yeah. He was there for the run to help him get it. He was healthy for, game one pretty much for the Celtics when they won the NBA Finals, but wasn't right after that point as he went down in that postseason. But they were both needed acquisitions to build around this core. And what Brad Stevens did was basically see a team go to the NBA Finals, lose his head coach after that run, get a new one weeks before training camp, not make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals, when many GMs and many teams would have blown it up. And I'm talking with the Jays. Traded Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, build around the other. He stayed patient, and he completely redid the entire team in that offseason, turning Malcolm Brogdon and Marcus Smart into a Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, who were pivotal in getting that 18th banner. Trading for a Derek White, who is their third best player on the team, will be the second best this upcoming season. And then in a matter of less than 48 hours, offloads Holiday and Porzingis, not giving up any draft assets, not giving up either the Jays or Derek White, gets them under the second apron, and still gives them room to grow and continue to get under that first apron and still be a competitive team. He knew how to build a team in the old NBA, and he's showing he knows how to build a team in the new NBA with this new CBA. There are no GMs like him in the game, and really is one of the best in all of pro sports.
Exactly. He is the epitome. His work is the epitome of trust the process, that he has a plan, and in Brad we trust because he has something up his sleeve always, and that he was a head coach first, that he wasn't like his dream his whole life wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a GM. He was a head coach and then just transitions to GM. And is, just happens to be phenomenal at it. So good for him. And I am just, as a Celtics fan and as someone here, very grateful that Brad Stevens is leading this team.
Yeah, as someone that coached a game, I'm sure that helps him so much when he knows and he understands the numbers and he has great people around him in that Celtics organization. But he understands he won't sacrifice basketball to sheerly get the numbers. Like an Anthony Simons return is tremendous. We saw the tweets pour out all on Twitter as well. And if you want to tweet at us, use the hashtag NESSNChat or email us at chat@nesson.com. Every NBA GM got to give arm and a leg for a player while Brad Stevens gives him 2 quesadillas and a Starburst and gets a deal done. Look, he's not wrong. And that's what I wonder with a lot of this is how does Brad do it and keep all the valuable assets? It must be. Here's from Boss Fred 7. How it feels having Brad Stevens as my GM, a dog happily trotting through the snow. That's exactly it. It's bliss. It is bliss. Oh, and hey, this one from me.
Oh, look at this.
This was the sheer thought when with Brad Stevens, orchestrated the perfect core for a championship team, unloaded 2 awful contracts because that's what it was at their age and their question marks. Got the Celtics under the second apron in less than 24 hours, saved $180 million in tax penalties, and that's important ownership while keeping the Jays and Derek White on the team. Best GM in the game. I got a quick response. Oh, Sam Presti, what about him? Yes, he's really good. But Brad, if he can pull this off completely this offseason, he is showing how valuable he is. You could have a great head coach. You could have the superstars. You need a front office that knows how to build a team, and he's showing that time and time again.
Yeah, tweet of the night, George. I think
thanks.
You really nailed it with that. But that's Twitter for you. Is you say something like that, and people are like, "Oh, you're wrong. Actually, you're wrong."
It was a Tulsa native. I knew where they were coming from. I quickly said, "Oh, hey, what's up?" That's all I had to say.
Understandable. Yeah, just hope you enjoy.
They're going to defend
their
guy in Presti. Exactly.
Totally. But I agree with you. I think Brad Stevens is a phenomenal GM in making this move. I think proves it. There were 2 camps that you could see where people said, "This is brutal. Why is he doing this? He's blowing up the championship team." I think there are some kind of, if you personally love these players, there are some reasons behind that where it's sad to see them go. But as a GM, it is a business move, and I think the right business move in the end.
Mm-hmm. And look, Porzingis' tenure in Boston, 2 seasons, a ring. Jrue Holiday's tenure in Boston, 2 seasons, a ring. And we're such key contributors, the 3rd, 4th best players on that championship run. So important to this franchise. Now in return, Anthony Simons, George Niang, 3 second-round picks. Tax bill drops to under $280 million along with the payroll. This is a team making their steps. But most likely, and they very likely are not done, but they may not be done, and it's still Jaylen Brown and Derek White's names that are being floated. Here's Shams Charania last night on ESPN with Scott Van Pelt, sharing what he knows and what he's hearing around the NBA.
My understanding is the Celtics are getting offers, calls on both Jaylen Brown and Derek White. The Celtics have high price thresholds for both players. We know how great Jaylen Brown and Derek White are, so I'm sure they're getting some massive offers, some pretty big-time calls as well. Their preference has been to keep both players, but this is a team that's still in the first apron, still a luxury tax team, still dealing with the uncertainty of Jason Tatum's status next season. So at minimum, I expect Sam Hauser, Anthony Simons as names that will be discussed. Will a team match that price threshold that the Celtics, I'm told, have set around the league for Jaylen Brown and Derek White to be able to get them? They are listening, but will a team get there? Just in the span of the last 2 days, Scott, though, they've shed $180 million.
You hear that, and Anthony Simons, Sam Hauser's name's being mentioned at the end. We'll have Jay King on from The Athletic later on the show. We'll ask him about that. But that's a reality of it, too, where you get rid of Jrue Holiday's paycheck, but then Anthony Simons comes in, 26 years old, 1 year remaining, making $26 million on the payroll. Very good player. But if he's not seen as a fit for the Celtics, again, another way Brad Stevens can continue to get this payroll in check is trade him for someone making less. And Anthony Simons, at his skill set, at his age, great at shooting the 3, just an all-around fantastic and electric scorer and a really good guard. There are NBA teams out there that want him. With the Sam Hauser, same thing. A microwave off the bench, heats up quick, will give you 3 threes in any spot of a game and can be really important for teams that want more shooting. But with what they're making, combine those two around $36 million, they're still above that first apron, and the Celtics have to get well below and stay under it for the next couple years. That's the important part, to get rid of that repeater tax. They were basically paying 7 to 8 times every dollar they were over that second apron, budget. Mm-hmm. They need to stay under that. They need to get their books back in check if they want to continue to be a long-term competitive team. Interesting to hear those names, and we hear the price for Jaylen Brown, Derek White, too. Something that would have to be undeniable, basically, is what the Celtics are looking for.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the goal here was to get under the second apron. And once they do that, now we can move forward in any direction we want. We have more flexibility to work from here. And with Brad Stevens making these moves, could they just be stepping stones to more moves? Or will these be fits for the team? If they trade Jaylen Brown, I don't even know what the team would look like. I don't think they're going to.
It'd be building it around a Derek White
Yes.
and a Payton Pritchard backcourt, Derek White and Anthony Simons backcourt, potentially. A Derek White, who knows what player. They would have to get a good NBA player in return, a starting caliber, upper echelon NBA player in return if they are to move a Jaylen Brown. And again, that's what the offer has to be like, the offer of all offers. What we saw Jrue Holiday and Porzingis go for, especially the Porzingis trade, like George Niang, that's a nothing move, a nothing addition. Good role player, but nothing more. If a Jaylen Brown or Derek White are not with the team, there's going to be a superstar returning for the Celtics. That's the only way I see that trade going down. For a team that needs to get over the top, maybe doesn't want to pay someone else. And for the Celtics, again, they would get their books in check.
Especially because they're not tanking this year.
No.
Like, it's not a tank, it is a rebuild.
Yeah.
So I think that is absolutely what has to happen, because a lot of critique that was seen about the return for Porzingis not being a ton, with his trade value being lower, but he had been sick with the viral illness that he had. That's still a mystery. So there was that aspect of it. But this may be not the end of what Brad Stevens is doing.
Yeah,
so,
I understand getting upset with the return in a way, but he's above 30 years old, always injured, was dealing with an illness and a really high price.
Great guy, but...
Well, exactly. Great player, great dude. Love him in this city. But at that contract, there's no way he's staying. You take whatever return you can get. We'll return with Boston has entered the chat after this quick break. We'll be going through what's trending around sports. Aaron Rodgers talk, some Red Sox talk, some parade talk as well, but not about the Celtics. That and more coming up on Boston has entered the chat. because make sure every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on NESN, 9 to 10 a.m. on NESN Nation, your Boston sports headlines, everything happening around sports and culture around the world. You can catch that every morning, every Monday through Friday, right here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Welcome back to Boston Has Entered the Chat, live inside the Salem 5 studios. George Balekji, Lucy Burdge, shout out our guy Toby. Oh, excuse me, Kyle. Sorry, Kyle. On the jib. Look at that flawless move. My man coming up high on that one. Let's get into what's trending right now on the chat. So Red Sox, now 4-game losing streak. Lose 3-2 to the Angels in extras in the 10th inning. We saw Marcelo Meyer go-ahead RBI in the bottom of the 10th to put the Sox up, and then they drop it. But also they drop another Garrett Crochet gem. 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, 0 earned runs. Red Sox in this one too, Lucy, 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, if you stayed up to watch this game on the East Coast, God bless you. God bless you, because this was something. You did get to see Marcelo Meyer have 3 hits.
Stand-up triple to start the game, goes 3 for 4 at the plate. You see to get him his RBI, showing up in big spots, hitting against lefties. Marcelo, great. Garrett Crochet, fantastic as always.
Yeah.
Red Sox lose.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Sorry, I just had to.
It's okay. I mean, unfortunately, they're not the Marcelo Meyers. The whole team has to contribute. So,
yeah.
Garrett Crochet, 10 strikeouts through 7. You got to see that. You got to see an amazing performance. So if you isolate it to those 2 things, amazing stuff.
That's what's been this team.
Yeah, but it's, you know.
It's the individuals. We've seen individual greatness. We haven't seen, as a whole, something good and consistent.
Yes.
That's a frustration in this.
Yeah, but you know when I think we will see it, George? The second half of this season is upon us. And I think that it's kind of a first half done, kind of brand new opening once they get home, I think. And we are now into the second half of the season. But they will be back on the East Coast very soon, starting on Friday. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think it will be a fresh beginning for this team. And they might not lose another game, George. They might really just catch fire. I think the losing streak ends.
They go 100-0 the rest of the way.
Yeah,
101-0.
Do you expect nothing less from this team? No. I don't think all is lost. I think that they'll be looking to be maybe buyers at the deadline, and Alex Bregman coming back is an optimistic thing. So I think that there's a lot to be excited about for this team, George. And if you could believe it, yeah, that was a tough one. And just kind of dust it off and move forward, I think, is the way to go about this. Because that was tough. That was really tough. But there were those sparks of optimism. You got Jarren Duran getting involved a little bit, and you have Marcelo Meyer with 3 hits, and you have Garrett Crochet with 10 strikeouts. So, and Alex Cora didn't get ejected. So a lot of good things about a loss that's really tough to swallow. Yeah.
We'll see what they do. Finish up the series today. Richard Fitz will be on the mound against the Angels. Last game out there. Hopefully they can avoid the sweep, because this is a team. They narrowly avoided the sweep when they played them at home just 3 weeks ago, but then 3 games against Toronto, 3 against Cincinnati as they start that stretch before the All-Star break. 81 games in. We'll see if they could go 81-0 rest of the way. We'll see. Possibility. Turning to football, Aaron Rodgers says this will be his last season of football. Pretty sure. That's what he really said. He told Pat McAfee he's pretty sure this is it, the last season of his NFL career. Said that's why he signed a 1-year deal in Pittsburgh. Here was a longer quote from him. It was my first love talking about football when I was 6 years old, dreaming about playing quarterback and being in the Super Bowl and winning in the Super Bowl, which he did with the Packers. I wanted to be there for minicamp once I decided I was going to be all in, but I didn't need this. I didn't need it all. I don't feel the need to prove anything to anybody or don't have any chip on my shoulder. Here's the best part at the end. I don't want the attention. Ugh. The guy that makes everything about him, the guy's all about attention, the guy that's all about sounding like he's the smartest person in the room, the guy that on draft night made it all about him for the Packers when he said he wants to leave and leaks out that info. The guy in New York that wanted to call the shots and run the show. That's why they paid Alan Lazard. That's why they brought in Boyle as his backup. That's why Robert Saleh was fired, with also Jack and Brick Johnson calling the shots there for New York. The guy, I don't want the attention, but before the season says, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. Not this is it, I'm pretty sure, because after every game, his weekly spots on McAfee, there will be the question, are you done? Are you going to come back? When he throws for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns out of nowhere, there will be, and he'll go, actually, I don't know if this is it. And that's what it's going to be with Aaron Rodgers. I'm over it.
Yeah, good old Brick Johnson. He's just keeping the door open, exactly, so that he gets constant questions about it and keep him coming back for more. That's his mantra, I would think. This is a guy, doesn't like attention. This is a guy who has a documentary about himself called Enigma.
Yeah,
He
and doing ayahuasca.
loves attention.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes. And the whole thing is like, oh, I'm so mysterious. I'm married, but am I? Because where's my wife? I'm just wearing a wedding ring and walking on the beach by myself. He loves attention. And it's such kind of a cop-out to be like, oh, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. Because you can say you're pretty sure about anything. I'm pretty sure I'm going to move to Australia. But you're not going to do it. That's what he's doing, is he's keeping the door open to say, I'm pretty sure exactly what you said. So that it's like, oh, which team are you signing with? I'm going to take as long as possible to pick a team. Are you vaccinated? Well, I don't know. I'm going to make everything about myself, so that people keep asking questions, so that his name keeps being in the headlines, because he loves it. He loves attention. Pretty sure he loves attention.
I can't wait for that question. Are you retiring? And he goes, I'm going to stop working. He's not going to say I'm retiring. Just like the same thing where he's actually vaccinated. Yeah, I'm immunized.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He has a way to spin it all the time. He's Mr. Spin Zone all the time. And are you married? I don't know. Pretty sure I'm married to the game. I'm convinced he's just married to the game.
We'll see with him. Hopefully he's just married to actually retiring. Talented, one of the greatest football players I've ever seen play the game, but eventually you just get over it. And
I'm pretty over it, yeah. He's such an enigma, though. Like, what is he going to do next, George?
And that's what he wants. All right, moving on. Thunder's championship parade. You see the scenes from there? Happy for the Thunder. Shout out to the people of Oklahoma. Here was the turnout. You see the tweet on your screen from TJ Ecker over in Tulsa. Our vantage point when the Thunder championship parade finished its route through downtown Oklahoma City. 71,000. Yeah, it's about the population of Oklahoma. And that's what it looked like turned out for the parade. Sparse. Thin, I would call it. When we think of Boston and parades, we've seen millions and millions literally turn out all down Causeway, all down Boston. Shout out. Look at that scene compared to this one, the Celtics parade through Back Bay. You cannot move. And that's what everyone that showed up flooded the streets. It was like seeing the Beatles go down Causeway and go down Boylston as well. Look, Boston knows how to do parades. Happy for the people of Oklahoma City. There's literally nothing else to do in Oklahoma than go to that parade. Take off work. It should have been a statewide holiday to go and show up, because I'm I'm disappointed in that turnout.
It's cute, I would say. A little cozy, intimate parade.
Yeah.
It's a little. So as someone who's
a Midwest nice spin.
Exactly. Well, as someone who was at the Celtics parade last year, can confirm you could not move. There were that imagery is so satisfying, because the streets are perfectly packed and it's like straight lines, and then you have the sparse Oklahoma City parade where it looks like someone's just playing music in the street and people start congregating to oh, what's this guy playing? What's he doing to put money in a hat? That's
it's like the magician you see outside of Faneuil Hall.
People start realizing what's going on,
and then they walk away.
See. But this is a championship parade. Yeah, they walk away. It's like someone was just walking to the store and they happened upon the parade, and they're like, oh, what's going on here? And so that's why the crowd was what it was. But yeah, it's an event here. It's a holiday here. We've had many of them, and millions still show up. But here, you would think maybe more people would show up, but it's nice. I think
it's literally the first.
You get to interact with the players more.
It's the first of its kind in the state. They have the Oklahoma
Sooners. They don't know what to do with themselves.
They have the Tulsa Drillers, and then they have the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah. They may never get another parade, and they were like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll just hang back here.
I'll catch the next one." Maybe that's the confidence they have. They have enough confidence that maybe they're like, "I'll catch the next one. This is a dynasty now, folks."
Look, I love SGA, love J-Dub, love this Thunder team. I love seeing SGA living his best life in that crowd. Yep. I would love to see the crowd show up. If there's another parade in Oklahoma City, show up. Show out. You got nothing better to do in all of Oklahoma, especially if you're out there on the panhandle part of it.
Fired.
I've been to that state. I've driven. Tulsa's a great city. I really do like Tulsa. Oklahoma City's all right. It's like, they try to do San Antonio with that. It's okay. Elsewhere, there's not much going on.
That's fair.
People of Miami, Oklahoma, great people though, by the way, too. Spelt like Miami, but it's Miami, Oklahoma. Fun fact, you all learned that today. That, and they don't show up for their parades. We'll take another break here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. When we're back, we got Jay King of The Athletic joining us, breaking down what the Celtics have done so far, what Brad Stevens could be doing next, and some NBA draft talk for the C's as well. Coming up right here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Welcome back to Boston Has Entered the Chat. George Balekji, Lucy Burdge. Let's get right to it. We got our guy Jay King with The Athletic helping us break down everything the Celtics are doing so far this offseason. So let's bring him in. Jay King of The Athletic. He's been covering the team so well and this offseason so far. Jay, good morning, my man. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Last year's offseason was a lot easier to cover, though.
I mean, last year's offseason, as it went down, was the ramp up for the championship. So now, or the go back to ascend and try to go back to back. Now we see what the Celtics are doing. Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, now with other teams. We knew this offseason would be all business. But from a basketball perspective, how do you view the Celtics right now for the upcoming season?
I think they just have a fluid situation. I think right now, obviously, they're a little more than $15 million over the luxury tax threshold still. So they're under the second apron, which is a good spot to be in. They've made 2 big trades to cut salary. But I think I don't know if they're done moving. And I think this is just going to be kind of Brad Stevens reconfiguring things. I don't want to call it a gap year because they still have a lot of, proud championship level players. But sort of take a step back to kind of reset so that they'll be ready to go when Jason Tatum comes back.
Yeah, rebuilding year, I think, is what we might be going with here for the Celtics, because it's not tanking. It's not all is lost. And one thing they have gained, Anthony Simons, how do you see him fitting in with this Celtics team?
You know what? It's going to be, first of all, he shoots a ton of threes. He's a dynamic, gifted scorer. The problems show up on the defensive end of the ball. I think he could be a strange fit next to Peyton Pritchard. I think it's still possible that the Celtics shop Anthony Simons and look to shed even more salary. Like I said, they're a little more than $15 million over the luxury tax threshold right now. If they get under that, they can and stay there for 2 years in a row. They can reset the repeater tax. I know people probably don't want to talk about money too much, but that's going to be the big driving force for the Celtics this summer. That's why Brad Stevens has made the 2 big moves that he's made. And I think there could be more to come because they are close enough to the luxury tax threshold that they could get there without it being too painful.
Yeah, man, I thought tax season ended in April, but as we get into this NBA offseason, we're going to keep hearing first, second apron, tax violations, all that. But with all these moves going down and with them getting under that second apron, I thought, okay, great job by Brad Stevens. But yet, Jay, we're still hearing Jaylen Brown's name be floated as a possible guy that could be traded. How likely do you think that is, and why would that be a possibility for the Celtics? Why not keep the Jays together for when Tatum is back?
The reason to do it would be because you've been blown away by an offer. And teams, obviously, they kind of smell blood in the water after the Tatum injury and with the Celtics needing to shed salary. So they're calling about those guys. I know that the Celtics price for Jaylen Brown would be sky high. I don't know if there's anybody out there willing to meet that price. And, so far they traded 2 starters, but they were able to get under the second apron without moving Jaylen Brown, without moving Derek White, without trading Sam Hauser, who was also a trade candidate. And so the trades, obviously they've had a bit of a talent drain the last couple of days, but I think they were smart moves by Brad Stevens to pick up a couple of draft picks and pick up nothing but expiring contracts, get off the final couple years of Jrue Holiday's contract, which could look pretty bad by the end of it, and kind of reposition yourselves to just have a little bit more flexibility in the future.
When you say sky high, I love you point that out. Like, we saw Desmond Bane go for 5 first-round picks, and we've seen other players get traded for some talent. What in your mind is sky high for the price of a Jaylen Brown?
I think it would take young talent. It would take a prime draft asset, at least a prime draft asset, probably several first-round picks. It would be a huge haul. Obviously, Jaylen has done a lot for Boston. He's won a championship in Boston. He fits really well next to Jason Tatum. Those guys have grown together and won together and have proven throughout the years that they're a winning duo. And so, yeah, it would be very high.
I hope that we do get to see Jaylen Brown as his own big man this season, and maybe that doesn't happen. So hopefully we'll see. But how does Brad Stevens do it? Because it seems like everything works out for him, and he makes these moves that are like something that you wouldn't expect. What is the secret sauce to what Brad Stevens does?
I think he's just a very smart guy, a very thorough guy. So far, he's done his work early, and I think it was important to move early while you still had more options, while the cap space was still out there to kind of dump salary on the Brooklyn Nets in the case of the Kristaps Porzingis trade. he found the Portland Trailblazers, who weren't really an expected suitor for Jrue Holiday, but apparently want him to mentor Scoot Henderson and help them take a step toward respectability as a team, and picked up nothing but expiring contracts in the deal. So he's done well, but at the same time, you lose Jrue Holiday, who was a key piece of your championship team. You lose Kristaps Porzingis, who had the rough playoff run, but was, other than that, super productive during his 2 years in Boston when he was healthy. And obviously that was a question. That's part of the reason why his value was so low. But these are painful trades, and they're smart trades, I think, to shed the money that the Celtics have done and do it without picking up any future money. But these are tough trades to make and tough decisions for Brad to make, and he might have some more to come.
Yeah, it's tough to see it happen, especially everything they've done for the city. But also when we still look at this team, like, we know there will be no Jason Tatum to start the upcoming season. We'll see whenever his return can be. But that's still, say they stick with the Simons. That's a guy that's 20 points per game, tremendous shooter, fits in a Joe Mazzulla offense. When we look at the East, Jay, Tyrese Halliburton now with his ruptured Achilles. We don't know what's going to happen in Milwaukee with Giannis past this offseason. The Knicks have a new head coach. The Cavs are the Cavs, and the Magic are the Magic. What is your outlook for this Celtics team? Because even with these moves going and these departures by guys that were core figures for them winning rings, this is still a team, in my eyes, I wouldn't be shocked if they're a 2 or a 3 seed come postseason. I would be more shocked if they miss the playoffs than if they're a high seed because of A, how weak the East is, but B, also because this is still a Celtics team with a lot of talent.
Yeah, I think they could be pretty good. We'll see what they do with the front court, though. Right now, everybody that played in their front court is either a free agent or gone in the case of Kristaps Porzingis. So they have a lot of work to do there. I still think they could make salary cuts here to try to get under the luxury tax. So what you see now, it might not be what you get. Right now, they're about $4.5 million under the second apron. Is that enough room to keep Luke Cornett, to keep Al Horford? Probably not. So either you shed more money and try to keep those guys. You're watching those guys leave. If you lose those guys, you've lost 4 key contributors to your team from the last couple of years. Jason Tatum, he could return at the end of next year, but the history of Achilles injuries suggests he probably won't be great. So I don't have super high expectations for this team, but I think that'll be part of the fun. Seeing Jaylen Brown figure it out as a top option, seeing Peyton Pritchard with more responsibilities. How big a year could he have after winning 6th Man of the Year last year and showing that he had more to his game than a lot of people realize. So I think they have a chance to be very competitive, and they have a lot of proud guys. I'm interested to see how Joe Mazzulla handles having a team that doesn't really have championship expectations.
It will be fun, I think. I'm looking forward to it. But do you think that Niang will end up playing a game for the Celtics? And is Brad Stevens done, or is Niang going to be a piece that he continues to move and Brad Stevens makes more moves going forward?
Yeah, that's another one. Like, he makes about $8 million. It's an expiring contract. You could definitely move it. But also, I think Niang would fit pretty well in Boston. He's a very good role player, a connective piece. He's obviously from Massachusetts and a local guy, and seems like a good locker room guy, someone who's all about winning, all about the team. So I think he could fit well if they keep him. But again, there are a lot of moving pieces here. They still could look to trim money. And I'm not sure that I'm very sure that what you see now is not what you're going to get at the end of the day. I just don't know what changes are coming next.
With the one thing we know, that there will be no Jason Tatum come time when this season tips off. Out of all that, let's say there is a structure of it is the Jays and Derek White they stick. Brad Stevens, I think one of the best parts he's done is shed Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis contracts and not give up White, Brown, or any draft assets. So let's see the top 3 guys are still here, Jay. What do you see as what the Celtics do need to add this offseason? To your point, the front court's very thin now. And there are some spots and some roles like a defensive stopper and a Jrue Holiday now gone. Who is a player you would like to see them add through a trade or possibly in the draft, which we'll talk about in just a moment?
I'm a big Ryan Kalkbrenner fan. I think that he's just a solid big man, and toward the end of the first round could be his range. He could be available when the Celtics pick at 28. I think he would help in the front court. He shoots threes. He blocks shots. He's a very gifted pick and roll player. Just knows how to to handle himself in those situations. So I know there's been some speculation about him and the Celtics, and that name kind of makes sense to me.
Hey, Ryan Kalkbrenner, I mean, just over 7 foot would be that next big coming into the Celtics, helping out defensively, great lob threat, and as you point out, shooting the threes that someone Joe Mazzulla would love. Overall, with the draft coming up, and I love you mentioned Kalkbrenner, the senior out of Creighton, that's someone that, when watching, and me watching the Big East, being an alum of Seton Hall, love watching that conference, I always see guys that go, okay, he looks NBA ready. Do you think that's the path that makes sense for the Celtics, or could it be a more developmental type draft pick, maybe age 18, 19, but has a lot of upside?
I think it all depends on who's available. We haven't seen Brad Stevens make too many draft picks. Baylor Shireman last year was a first round pick Brad Stevens has ever kept. Previously they were going out using those first round picks to get Malcolm Brogdon, to get Derek White, to get other players into Boston. And so I honestly don't know too much about how Brad will be as a drafter. Last year, it was Baylor Shireman, who was in college for 5 years, who was a more established guy, an older guy, and he had a slow start to his rookie season, but kind of came along later in his rookie year. I don't really know too much about Brad's track record there as a drafter. I think they'll go best player available, though.
Best player available if they stick and pick at the end of the draft at 28 would make sense. Maybe a guy like Rasheer Fleming, older guard, big wingspan, can shoot the three and defend well. Could we also see something this season, too, with all the talk of the guys we've seen at the NBA level? Would you be surprised to see J.D. Davison take on a big NBA role? Maybe Jordan Walsh finally emerge as a guy that plays significant minutes for the Celtics as they go through this complete remake on the fly this offseason?
I think J.D. Davison's going to have a hard time because, number one, even after trading Jrue Holiday, you still have Derek White, Anthony Simons, and Peyton Pritchard above him in the backcourt. And number two, they're obviously in the quest to save some money, and he has a non-guaranteed contract right now. So I don't know what they'll do with him, but I think that could be tough. With Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman, those guys could have a much bigger opportunity. Obviously, Jason Tatum goes down. You have about 37 minutes per game available. And those guys, they showed flashes in spots, weren't really consistent last season. They're going to need to be consistent. They're going to need to be better. They're going to need to contribute on a regular basis because not having Jason Tatum out there, he did so many things for the Celtics, and now, those guys will get their chance.
Heading into the draft and in the wake of these most recent moves, a lot of people are saying that Brad Stevens is the best GM ever and he's a wizard and all of these great things about what he has done. Do you think Brad Stevens is a better GM than NBA head coach? Is this his calling? Is being a GM after all of the things that he has done as a head coach, but a GM is what he was meant to be?
That's a good question. I think he was meant to be a coach. He was such a good coach. And obviously they never won a title, but he took a team with rookies everywhere and young guys everywhere to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James. He meshed several different variations of rosters. They won, I believe it was 25 games in his first year, kind of had a hodgepodge roster of random guys his second year, made the playoffs every time after that. He was just a phenomenal coach. Obviously, he's great at building a team too, and I think his time at Butler showed that, and he's kind of carried that along into his time with the Celtics as the president of basketball operations. He knows what he wants. He wants no-nonsense guys who are all about the team, and that's how he's gone about building it. But I think the thing that's impressed me is how quickly he's learned all of the collective bargaining agreement stuff, all of the salary stuff that maybe a lot of coaches don't really concern themselves with. But when you're in charge of the basketball operations, you really need to know all that stuff. And the Celtics have been really sharp on all of the fringes there during Brad Stevens' time in charge.
Yeah, I love that what you end with, because we saw what Brad Stevens did to build a team that won the 18th banner, and rightfully so gets all his flowers as a GM. We just saw what Sam Presti did to build that team, and the Thunder team that looks like they won't go anywhere, and got the first NBA title in franchise history. But to your end point, that's what jumps out to me the most about Brad Stevens, where he knew how to exist in the Big Three era, the Supermax era, build a team, flip picks, and win a ring. And now he seems to seamlessly navigate how to get in with this new CBA, with a second apron, with what is as hard of a cap as we've seen in the NBA. Where does Brad Stevens get this from to flawlessly go from one type of way to lead an NBA front office to now seamlessly transition into the next type of way and be a guy like a Sam Presti that is just ahead of the game is what it feels like, Jay?
I think part of it is he leans on the guys in that front office who have been there for a long time. Austin Ainge just left for the Utah Jazz, but he was someone super trustworthy. Mike Zarin, Dave Lewin, those guys are really sharp, and I'm sure helped Brad navigate all the CBA stuff that he had to learn. He has said that he spent a lot of time on the trade machine when he first got the job, just kind of figuring out, different possibilities. And obviously from, reacquiring Al Horford to going out and getting Derek White to finding Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday as the missing pieces to the title squad. And also he's hired, two great coaches. In first, Ime Udoka, obviously that didn't end well, but then Joe Mazzulla to replace him. Joe Mazzulla was not even a bench assistant the year before. And for Stevens to give him that opportunity and realize that Joe could flourish as a head coach, I think is another just brilliant move by Brad.
Well, I got to ask about that laugh. Do you bond with Brad over the trade machine? Like, you guys sit down, go on some fan spo and put some stuff together?
He's much better at it than I am. When I try to make possibilities, I'm like, I never would have thought of the Portland Trailblazers for Jrue Holiday. I'll tell you that much. So, yeah, Brad's a little better at the trade machine than I am.
All right, I want to end it with this. You mentioned Joe Mazzulla and his eye for head coaches. It was Ime Udoka, then it was Joe Mazzulla, in a way where he had to decide that on the fly, literally right before training camp broke for the Celtics that season. What, in your eyes, makes Joe Mazzulla the right head coach to lead the Celtics into this next saga of them as a franchise? Tatum, not around this season, could be leaning on Brown as a leader, but also navigated through what will be a whole new way to build teams in the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Joe handles it, because obviously he came in and they were ready to win a title right away. They didn't the first year, but came back the next year and finished the job. And this past year, obviously, their whole only goal was to go back to back. They didn't quite get there, obviously, but this will be the first time he's dealing with probably playing younger guys, playing guys who aren't really championship caliber players. How is he going to handle that? How is he going to handle it when they lose, 4 out of 5 games? Is he going to relax a little bit? Not really in his style. But here's the thing. The two things he's great at. One, teaching the game, teaching guys how to play together, teaching guys how to think the game and not just play it. And then two, I just think he's great at building a culture of hard work and building a culture of toughness. And that goes a long way, especially when you've got a few new faces in and you're going to be trying to, kind of keep alive the spirit that you've had when Jason Tatum was out there. It's going to be a different year for a lot of these guys, and Joe will have to navigate all that.
Yeah, I mean, still just a young head coach, still getting his legs under him in a way, and has a ring to go along with all that. He's Jay King of The Athletic. Catch him covering everything Celtics, the draft, this offseason, the trade deadline, all of that and more. Jay, appreciate you taking the time, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. All right, we'll take another break here on Boston has entered the chat. When we're back, we'll be talking Hockey Hall of Fame. A few Bruins legends getting the nod, rightfully so, and some Boston legends as well. We'll be right back with that here on Boston has entered the chat.
Big Z, want to congratulate you on the Hall of Fame. What a no-brainer there. I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for taking me under your wing and all that you've done for me and meant to me with our time here in Boston together. I'd say that my favorite Big Z moment when we were in the finals, in true Z fashion, he broke his jaw and came right back for the next game, and I'll never forget hearing the Garden shake when they announced his name. Truly, it was one of the most special moments I think I've had in that rink. And as a Boston Bruin, the respect and for you, for what you meant to the team and the energy, I'll always remember that moment.
That's one of the Bruins, Charlie McAvoy, congratulating Zdeno Chara, legend of the franchise, legend of hockey, first ballot Hall of Famer. No surprise when this class was announced. Zdeno Chara, part of that, the 2025 Hockey Hall of Fame class. Zdeno Chara, Jack Parker, legendary coach at Boston University for men's hockey. 3-time national championship winner as a head coach there. We also saw as well some other guys go in, but just big news for the Bruins. Huge news for Zdeno Chara. Again, a legend of the franchise, and I think that doesn't even really put it all into him, how significant he was for the Boston Bruins, being the captain of that 2011 Stanley Cup championship, the first one since 1972. Took him to other 2 Stanley Cup final appearances, but someone that goes down as one of the best, if not the best defenseman of all time. And every time it's one of those, you close your eyes and you say Zdeno Chara, you picture him in that Bruins, spoke to be that Bruins sweater.
Oh, totally. As the captain, you get chills just hearing him talk about that with the broken jaw, playing in the Stanley Cup final. So well deserved. I mean, this is a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer for him in his first year of eligibility. Bruins legend, a hockey legend, tallest player to ever play in the NHL as well. So appropriate for him to have this honor, Norris Trophy, and to add first ballot Hall of Famer to that list of accolades is just so appropriate for him.
Yeah, his 1,680 career games, the most ever for an NHL defenseman. He played over 1,000 of those for the Bruins. 24 seasons he was in the NHL. I mean, began his career before being to Boston. 24 seasons as a defenseman. Insane to think of that. And, of course, he played 14 of those with the Bruins and was the captain from his first to his last game with the Boston Bruins. 3 Stanley Cup final appearances, won the Norris Trophy in 2009. We saw the statements coming in as well from the Boston Bruins. Starts with Jeremy Jacobs, owner and governor of the Bruins. See the tweet there, superb human being. Here's what Jeremy Jacobs had to say. Z is a superb human being in so many ways. Not only in size and skill, but also in his thoughtfulness and the respect he commands. It's no surprise that he was selected in the first year of eligibility because he's truly special. The Bruins were fortunate to get him and raise the cup with him. As for Charlie Jacobs, the CEO of the Boston Bruins, sharing in a statement, today's news cements Z's legacy is not just one of the greatest to ever wear the Bruins logo, but one of the best in the sport of hockey. For many years, Bruins fans had a front row seat to his skill set and his amazing drive to consistently be at the top of his game. The memories of watching him lift the Stanley Cup will last a lifetime. It's also important to call out the incredible impact he had and still has to this day in the community, proudly representing the Spoke to Be and the city of Boston. He set an example of what it means to be a Boston Bruin for generations to come. We are so proud of the honor bestowed upon him by the Hockey Hall of Fame. And that's what you get with the Zdeno Chara, someone that when they talk about the culture that's in that Bruins locker room, it's Patrice Bergeron, it's Brad Marchand, it's David Krejci, it's Zdeno Chara. What those guys established when they got here is what made the Boston Bruins one of the most respectful franchises in all of pro sports. And it's something different where if you don't fit the culture, you're not a Boston Bruin. And Chara, with the highest of high standards, is someone that helped establish that.
Oh, absolutely. And all around, wonderful human being. Leader, I think, is a word that comes up a lot when describing Zdeno Chara. Cam Neely, also in his statement, kind of really just well-rounded about who Zdeno Chara is. He said, to put it simply, Zdeno's skill set stands among the most unique in the century-plus history of the National Hockey League, making him an enormously worthy of enshrinement into the Hockey Hall of Fame, where he will be remembered forever as one of the very best to play our sport. It really doesn't get much higher praise than that. I mean, he is a consummate leader and someone who has just spoken as highly as possible as a hockey player and as a person. I
like Cam Neely. He used the word enormous very purposely there. Because of Zdeno Chara, tallest hockey player ever.
Enormous.
And hey, when you go back to his game, also 200 career playoff games, a slap shot that would just rip a puck through any net. And he joins a list of first ballot Hall of Famers. The Bruins put out this graphic. Of course, there's Ray Bourque, there's Chief, Dick Clapper, Phil Esposito, Brian Leach, Bobby Orr. Just the names go on. And this is a graphic, too, where the Bruins put out with Zdeno Chara now joining this list. First ballot Hall of Famers who spent at least one season with Boston. I like the Jerome McGinley add-on there. Played one season with the Bees. Even going with someone that goes like Jacques Plante, who just, started a couple games for the Bees. But hey, spend a season with the Bruins. You're in the first ballot Hall of Famer. They're giving him a shout-out on that graphic. But it shows the history of this franchise. And to pivot a little to also Jack Parker, legendary head coach for Boston University, was with them for 40 seasons. His 897 career wins was the most for any single head coach at any single school in college hockey history. Here's Jay Pandolfo, the now head coach of the Boston Bruins, talking about Jack Parker, who, of course, was his coach when he was a Terrier.
Everybody says Jack Parker, legendary coach. Like, what was it about him that made him legendary? Like, how did he help you as soon as you came in there, and how did he mold you into the player that you were?
He could be hard on you. He certainly held you accountable, but he let you play. Like, he wanted you to make plays. He encouraged you to make plays, but also when it was time to hold you accountable, he would. And I think he did that with a lot of his players. I mean, you certainly had to have thick skin to play for him.
Yes.
I mean, what right?
Yeah, the cage treatment he gave me.
Like centering you out in front of the locker room.
Oh yeah, no question about it. It goes a long way. You got to be able to take that in front of your peers. And I think if you had thick skin, you could do it. But he also knew when it was time to give you a hug afterwards. Like he really cared about his players. And for me, just sitting here thinking about it and what this podcast does, I can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame at this point, Jack Parker. I think he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame just from what he's done. How many players that
I said 50 to 60, I think, probably NHL players, if not more.
I would say for sure. And then beyond that, how many guys that played for him are head coaches in the NHL, general managers in the NHL, assistant general managers. I'm just actually really surprised that he hasn't got that nod yet. I think he will at some point just because of kind of what he's done. And if you just look at the whole package of kind of what he created at Boston University.
That's great from Jay Pandolfo. That was on Spin Chicklets. And they pointed out 73 players went on to skate in the NHL. 44 of those guys played 50 or more games in the NHL. He also coached 29 Olympians. And Mike Sullivan, John Hines, two former players, currently head coaches in the NHL as well. Three-time NCAA championship as a head coach, 1978, 1995, 2009, of course, as well. It was cool to see a name like Zdeno Chara be on that ballot. Really awesome for someone that is so important to the sport of hockey in Jack Parker and is a legend of legends in a hockey city like Boston, get the nod to get into the Hall of Fame as well.
Yeah, he couldn't have said it more times. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame, and now he is. So thanks to Spit and Chicklets, he is now in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right. Give him the move.
Spit and Chicklets bump gets you in the Hall of Fame. And he said it. He said, this podcast could get him in, and it did. So here we go. Here we are. And now he's in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, and we'll give Boston is in the chat credit of celebrating Jack Parker, too. Spit and Chicklets started it. We finish it. We'll take a break here on Boston is in the chat. Make sure to get your latest up-to-date live Boston sports headlines. Always on Boston has entered the chat. Live every Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. on NESN, 9 to 10 a.m. on NESN Nation. That's Boston has entered the chat.